This is the United Kingdom, home to the Great British Public, some neatly organised stones, a statue T-posing, and a productivity puzzle. Yep, today we're going to address an ongoing discussion within the UK as to why its economy seems to be struggling to be productive. So, whether you are watching from the UK or not, buckle up because we'll be diving into this topic across two videos to allow for an in-depth analysis of the Great British Productivity Puzzle. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and welcome to the UK's Productivity Puzzle. So let's begin with a simple graph to visualize this puzzle. In this graph, we can see the annual growth in the UK's labour productivity. That's to say, on average, over the course of a year, how much more productive is the average British worker? What should be pretty clear to make out is that the average rate of growth in the run-up to the Great Recession in 2008 is significantly higher than the average rate of growth that has become the new norm within the UK post-recession. This is puzzle number one. Yep, there's more than one. This lackluster growth in productivity is painful for the economy, since increases in labour productivity are essential to higher rates of real GDP growth, and therefore are what make the average worker richer. But, as I previously hinted, this is not the only puzzle. The second puzzle is why has productivity growth since the Great Recession been weaker in the UK than in other advanced economies, like Baguette Land, Burgerland, Beerland, Bigland and Botland. These shortcomings are not to be overlooked. In fact, a senior economist at PwC calculated that if the British were able to increase their hourly output levels to the levels seen by their German friends, the economy would receive a $230 billion boost, equivalent to about $7,400 for every British worker. And if you're from the US, you may be surprised to know that in theory, the average US worker could take every Friday off work and still have produced more in output at their jobs than their tea-drinking counterparts. So maybe that's helped you understand how far the British are off the mark when it comes to productivity, and there's a large financial reward for solving this puzzle. But where does one start? Why is there such a stark difference between the Brits and their freedom-loving cousins? Now, as you can imagine, there is definitely more than one reason that contributes to the UK's low productivity growth figures. So, we will help simplify our explanation by dividing the causes into macro-level and micro-level causes. So, let's begin by looking at the macro level by talking about the UK's industrial structure. By viewing the industrial structure of a nation, we can see which industries are more productive than others. And when this industrial structure is compared to other countries, we are able to identify whether a nation's economy is more productive because of a few certain industries, or because productivity across all industries is generally higher, resulting in a higher average productivity level. Makes sense, right? Well, in the case of the UK, the discussion is often centered around the idea of the Lewis model, named after this legend who won a Nobel Prize back in 1979. Now, to simplify, the Lewis model refers to the process of economic development that sees labour move from low productivity sectors to high productivity sectors. Think about how not so long ago, a much larger proportion of the developed world worked on farms, a low productivity sector, and then later over many decades moved into factories and became more productive. Now, in the case of the modern day UK, the debate is about whether the UK has been undergoing the reverse of this Lewis model. That's to say, labour has been moving from higher productivity manufacturing activities to lower productivity services sectors, and therefore has acted as a drag on national productivity growth. As those who have been trained in retail have a much larger skills gap to bridge if they wish to be working in more innovative sectors of the economy, like engineering and technology. So let's have a look at some data to see what are the potential contributors to this productivity puzzle. Here, you can see the breakdown of productivity by worker at an industry level between the UK and Germany. What you can see is that the UK's economy is more productive in only 3 of the 10 industries displayed. extraction and utilities, in part thanks to the UK's North Sea oil and gas industry, finance, in part thanks to London's role as a global financial hub, and the arts and entertainment industries, in part thanks to James Bond, a wizard with a troubled childhood, and Adele. But we're comparing to Germany, and the German economy is greatly different to the UK's, with many of these industries weighted significantly differently, in part due to its massive industrial sector. So instead, let's compare the UK to France and Sweden, two countries that are home to more service-based economies that align better to the UK's. In this graph, we can see that the UK ranks as the least productive nation in 6 of these 10 industries, including employment-heavy industries such as wholesale and retail. These data therefore point towards the shortcomings in the UK's productivity being as a result of within-industry effects, and weakens the idea that it's the industrial structure of its economy that is being a significant contributor to poor productivity growth. So, that leads to our next question and micro-level analysis. What are these within-industry effects that are making the UK unproductive across various industries? Why are low productivity levels so broad in their presence? So, what causes within-industry productivity to be lower in one country than another? There are multiple variables that can be measured, and we're going to have a look at 3 of them: investment rates, supply of labour, and the education of that labour. So, one place where we can start our search is by looking at investment rates among countries. And, well, the UK is not such a large investor. You see, the combination of the UK's government, corporate and household investment rates are ranked as the 3rd lowest among the OECD's European members. Only Portugal and Greece have lower investment rates, which means that the UK is outperformed by less developed European economies like Latvia, Slovakia and Poland, which is probably not what you had in mind. This poor investment rate has consequences and will come back to haunt the British economy perhaps even further if not addressed. It has translated into a capital output ratio that is far below its peers and is acknowledged as one of the main factors that contribute to the UK's productivity puzzle. In fact, just look at the UK's R&D spending in its economy as a whole. It's not only below the global average, but it's almost half the rate of spending seen in Sweden and Switzerland, making the UK's economy just appear to be second class. But this doesn't really answer why British firms are investing less in the first place. What are the hurdles and incentives for British firms that are possibly impeding their ability to become more productive? Now, we all know that growth in labour productivity is essential to seeing growth in real wages. And to grow labour productivity, we need investment and innovation. But what about the cheap supply of labour? Surely an abundance of cheap labour discourages firms to invest in labour-saving technologies. Is the UK's business model too labour intensive? This is a good question, and many argue that with a flexible labour market and an abundance of labour, that this undermines the growth of labour-saving technologies, which are essential in encouraging long-term productivity growth, which in turn increases real wages. But let's take a moment to look at the data. The UK's labour market is very flexible. Within the OECD, it is home to the 4th most flexible labour market, behind only Japan, the US and Denmark. One might think that more labour market flexibility would encourage a greater labour-intensive business model, especially in combination with a higher participation rate of older workers and higher levels of inward migration. But this doesn't seem to correlate among other countries. Denmark and the US, for example, have more flexible labour markets and have a similar demographic makeup, which has seen a higher participation rate among the elderly population, and have access to large pools of labour through high levels of migration in the US and Denmark being part of the EU, therefore technically giving the right to 440 million EU citizens to work in Denmark, no questions asked. Yet it is the Danish and US workforces that are highly productive, much more so than the British. And on the other side of the coin, more productive German, French and Swedish workers are also part of the EU and are home to much less flexible labour markets. So the idea of a flexible labour market within a country that is exposed to similar demographic and inward migration forces being a large contributing factor to the UK's poor productivity is inconclusive. So what else could prove to be an issue holding back the British economy? Could it be the very British workforce itself? Is the British education system failing its national economy? Now, to those of you that are familiar with global university rankings, you're probably thinking that this is an area in which the UK performs well in. And if we were to analyse higher educational institutions, you'd probably be right. After all, the UK is home to 18 of the world's top 100 universities. But despite the UK having bragging rights over its European neighbours, there's little evidence that suggests that the UK's high university attainment rate has translated into higher levels of productivity, suggesting that the bottleneck in productivity growth is either as a result of what people are studying or not related to education at all. If, on the other hand, we look at the UK's PISA scores, which are its rankings across mathematics, reading and science among 15-year-olds, we get a slightly different picture. One that shows that the UK is in the middle of the pack within the OECD. It ranks higher across all categories with respect to the USA, but it's neither a fantastically strong nor poor score compared to nations of similar development. However, what these data do show though is that the UK's workforce is just as capable as any other developed nation's workforce when it comes to learning and adopting new technologies. And this is a key aspect that doesn't get enough attention: the diffusion of innovation. And if you want to learn more about the impact of the diffusion of innovation in the UK's productivity puzzle, then check out the second part to this video series that will be coming out soon, when we'll also discuss some of the solutions for the UK economy. As for now though, we want to hear from you. If you're from the UK, let us know what you think holds the country's productivity levels back. And if you're part of the remaining 99% of the world population, let us know if you think that productivity growth has been a problem in your country as well. Hi everyone, thanks for watching today's video. As mentioned, this video is part of a mini-series about the UK's productivity puzzle. Drop us a like and comment for the algorithm and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Take care. Bye.